First, let's start with this case. I graduated from high school last December, and as a gift for both my graduation and my 18th birthday, my parents gave me a cruise vacation. It was also meant to be a family trip. Normally, we go to all-inclusive resorts, but I've always wanted to experience a cruise, so I was really excited. Before the trip, I made it clear to my parents that cruises are different from resorts. If we went on excursions, we'd need to stick to the schedule and return to the ship on time. Missing the departure wasn't an option. The cruise lasted a week, and during one of the excursions, my parents decided to take their time shopping and bargaining with locals. When I told them it was time to head back to the ship, they brushed me off, saying they weren't ready yet. I reminded them about the schedule, but they insisted they knew what they were doing. Eventually, I told them I was heading back to the ship on my own. My mom just waved me off. They ended up missing the ship's departure by a significant margin. They contacted me later through WhatsApp, upset and asking why I didn't make the ship wait for them. I wanted to scream that I couldn't possibly hold up 3,998 passengers just because two people didn't understand the importance of being on time. As a result, they had to fly to the next port of call to rejoin the cruise, which cost them a lot of money. Now they're angry at me for leaving them behind and are making me feel miserable about it. I honestly don't know what I was supposed to do. They ignored my warnings and explicitly told me they were fine. I wish I had never asked for this cruise, because it's turned into such a stressful experience. Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. They seriously think the ship will delay for 45 minutes. Yeah, no. The docks and ship have a schedule to keep. They are adults and need to be responsible for getting back on time, which is something you have figured out in less than 6 months of being an adult. At least you don't have to go on any more vacations with them after this. Your parents are in the wrong. I don't do cruises, but I have some experience with them because I travel to a place where cruise ships are common. I also thought passengers were warned that the ship leaves no matter who is on board. You would never have been able to prevent the cruise ship from leaving. They have a schedule, and they keep to it. The ship waits for no one. This is all on your parents. They didn't respect the ship's schedule. You're not in the wrong. What precisely do they think you could have done? Kidnapped the captain? Staged your own drowning? You didn't abandon them. They abandoned you. Don't let them weasel word this around to being your fault in any way, shape, or form. I'm really sorry your parents have ruined this for you. It's pretty pathetic of them to blame you for their extremely easy-to-avoid deliberate bad decision. They owe you at least 2 apologies, one for ignoring your sage advice in the first place, the second for behaving like spoiled 4-year-olds. You're not in the wrong, and I really hope you make your parents read this thread. Next up, I'm a 19-year-old woman living with my great-grandma, who is 81. Recently, I bought us a pizza from Little Caesars, and we went to pick it up. When we got home and opened the box, we realized they had messed up our order. So, we had to go back to get it fixed. When we returned to the store, my great-grandma noticed a man heading to his car and mentioned to him that our order had been incorrect and suggested he check his own box, just in case. The man then told me that maybe I could give the incorrect pizza to a homeless person nearby. I felt a little uncomfortable, but didn't say much as he followed me into the Little Caesars. He smelled strongly of cigarettes and kept giggling softly while talking to me. His voice was slurred, and I wasn't sure if he had a mental health condition or was under the influence of something. He said the fact that my pizza order was wrong was funny, which only made me more uneasy. The employee quickly corrected my order and took back the original pizza. Once I had the correct one, I left the store. The man followed me outside, and I felt panicked. I ended up running to the car and told my great-grandma to drive. She was upset with me for running away and said the man likely just wanted something to eat. Am I wrong for feeling uncomfortable and reacting the way I did? Let's start judging. You had to return your pizza and he followed you anyway. You ran, no problem. Grandma is upset because she didn't understand. Took me a second too. Yes, you could have told him to ask the cashier for the first pizza. If he was confused, that would have sorted him. If he was just creepy, you could still run. But yes, running was the correct response. Clarify with Grandma that you ran because his pizza was on the counter, not with you. You're not in the wrong. Never, ever, be ashamed of running away from a person who gives you creepy vibes. You need to protect yourself first. Their feelings come second, if at all. Listen to your instincts. Gavin DeBecker, an expert on personal security, has called this the gift of fear. You're not in the wrong. This is a moment of trusting your gut in an uncomfortable situation, not being prejudiced against the unhoused in general. Next up, I created this new account because I haven't been active here in a while and can't remember my old login details. Each Christmas, we typically give our child about 5 gifts, and each relative household, grandparents, aunts, uncles, etc., will give 1 or 2 gifts. This system works well for us. This year, however, a more distant relative, not related by blood and someone we rarely see, surprised us by sending 5 larger toy gifts, a few books, and some smaller items for our child. I was overwhelmed, as it's already a challenge each year to make room for new toys. This felt excessive. What surprised me even more was that this relative also did the same thing for another child in the family, even though she barely knows that child. From what I understand, she hasn't even met this other child, as her connection to our family is through my brother. While I deeply appreciate the thought and generosity, I later found out that these gifts came from a local toy drive meant to support families who might not be able to afford much for Christmas. This relative, who likely lives on a more modest income but has a steady job, apparently took toys from the drive to distribute to various children she knows. From what I've gathered, she gave away around 25 toys to different children in her family and social circle, including ours. Learning this left me feeling uneasy. We're an upper-middle-class family and definitely not the intended recipients for donated toys. While I wouldn't have minded if she had taken 1 toy for our child, the sheer volume feels excessive, especially knowing that these toys might have gone to children who truly needed them. I'm now considering redonating these items so they can hopefully reach families in need. However, I worry that doing so might come across as ungrateful or rude, especially since the gifts were given with kind intentions. I also feel conflicted about not keeping the toys when they were chosen for my child. Would I be wrong to donate the toys? Update. After speaking with others, I've realized the total number of items she took was closer to 25, not 40. Many people have suggested addressing the situation directly with her, but I feel uncomfortable doing so, especially since she recently suffered the loss of her pet in a tragic accident. I've decided to mention the situation to my brother, as he's closer to her and can handle it more delicately if he feels it's necessary. Thank you all for your input and advice. Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. Those toy drives aren't meant for adults who don't want to, can't spend much on gifts. They're for children who otherwise won't get such gifts. I would contact a local church or hospital if you can't get a hold of the original organization. They'll be happy to help more kids, even on Christmas Day. You're not in the wrong. We can definitely be overwhelmed during the holidays by the amount of stuff people want to give us. This is why my favorite type of stuff to receive for kids is consumables. Don't feel guilty donating things that just fill your home and add to chaos. Some things my kids receive, we play with for an afternoon or 2 as a fun activity, and then it gets donated. My kids never see it as their toy to keep. I read somewhere that people that have financial trouble around holidays have a hard time finding toys at thrift stores because everything is cleared out. It's a little late for that this year, but something to think about next year for donating excess toys or gently used good quality toys, leaving your home. You're not in the wrong. You would be doing the right thing. It was really mean and selfish of your relative to take advantage of that scheme. It's about the recipient's needs and not the giver's. If your relative had actually been aware that you or the other child's parents were struggling financially and that you wouldn't be able to give your children gifts, and she knew of a gift scheme that could help you, then it would have been reasonable to get 1 gift for each child. But as you say, you are okay financially. It's impossible to know what your relative's financial situation is and what she can afford. But she could have given the children something thoughtful and inexpensive. She misused a charity that was intended for children who have nothing. She took quite a lot of toys away from those children. The right thing to do is to donate them where there is a genuine need for them. Next up, I'm a 33-year-old woman working in a small, technical, and highly specific field that's heavily male-dominated. To avoid revealing too much about my identity, I'll just say it's a niche subcategory of law. I graduated 9 years ago. For context, the education system in my country is different from the US, so I studied for 5 years. Since then, I've become both a practicing lawyer and a researcher. I've published some work here and there, not widely known outside the field, but recognized within it. Last night, I went to a bar with some friends, and they introduced me to one of their acquaintances who works in the same field. While he's not a lawyer like me, he's a legal advisor, and we work on overlapping topics. I was genuinely excited to meet someone in my niche field, as it's rare to encounter peers socially. We started chatting about work, and eventually we disagreed on a specific point. I explained my perspective, but he dismissed it, saying my opinion was unfounded. He then stated that his opinion was based on the work of a professional. To my surprise, he was referencing one of my publications. He proceeded to explain my own work to me for about 20 minutes, but completely misinterpreted it. His explanations were riddled with inaccuracies, yet he spoke with complete confidence, as though teaching a first-year law student. I decided not to interrupt. It was amusing to watch him confidently explain something he clearly didn't understand. The conversation eventually shifted, and we moved on with the night. However, just before leaving, I decided to tell him the truth. I let him know that I was actually the author of the work he had cited, and pointed out that he had misunderstood it. He didn't take it well. He became visibly upset and accused me of manipulating the situation to humiliate him. He said I should have mentioned it at the beginning of our conversation and claimed I had set him up to embarrass him. I simply replied that he had embarrassed himself and left. This morning, I woke up to texts from my friends saying that I caused unnecessary drama and could have been nicer to their friend. They felt I should have told him right away that I was the author, and now I'm wondering if I was wrong. For clarity, the discussion about work was private, just between him and me. My friends weren't part of the conversation, nor were they present when I revealed I was the author. Any embarrassment he felt was not public. He simply seemed upset that a woman corrected him. I suspect his anger stemmed from that more than anything. Edit: I've noticed some comments doubting the authenticity of this story, claiming, "This doesn't happen," or "This sounds made up." I find it ironic, as many women in similar fields have shared comparable experiences, yet some still insist this is unrealistic. Am I wrong for not revealing up front that I was the author? Should I have handled this differently? Let's start judging. This is as good as that man on Twitter that tried to tell Margaret Atwood which religious doctrine The Handmaid's Tale was a critique of. You're not in the wrong. You're not in the wrong. He messed around, found out. He's just pissed as a small man that realized he was outclassed and potentially made some massive career errors. Being plain wrong to start with, and then being enough of a misogynist to behave like that without realizing you were the author. You took the trash out. He probably behaves like this in the office too, so taking him down a peg probably hit too hard. You're not in the wrong. A decent person would just laugh and apologize, admitting he really must have looked funny to you, and then respectfully ask to explain the points he did not get. No matter how late you revealed the truth, and even if you said that a little bit bitter, any sane, healthily confident person would apologize for misinterpreting your text. He could continue arguing, but how he reacted was not normal. You're okay. Next up, my parents had me when they were 18 and 19. I'm a 15-year-old girl now. It's always been obvious that they resented becoming parents so young, and they've never really tried to be good parents. Most of my time is spent at friends' houses because I don't have extended family to rely on. My grandparents and other relatives disowned my parents for having me so young. Being at friends' houses has always been a positive escape that feels more comfortable than being at home. My parents haven't done the typical parenting things, like helping with homework, attending parent-teacher conferences, or supporting me at school. I don't think they've ever gone to a single conference. They often ignored school forms and documents I needed them to sign, leaving me to beg them at the last minute to get it done. Birthdays and Christmases have never been celebrated in a big way for me. On the other hand, they always make a big deal out of their wedding anniversary. That's their thing. 2 years ago, they announced they were expecting another baby, and it really hurt me. They made comments that felt like I didn't exist, saying how excited they were to finally have a baby and how they couldn't wait to become parents. When a friend of my mom's reminded her that they already had a child, me, my parents said I was just their too early practice run and that this time was the real deal. When my sister was born, they were incredibly attentive to her and practically forgot about me entirely. Once, I got sick at school, and the staff tried calling them to pick me up early, but my parents ignored the calls. When I got home, I found out they had taken my sister out for a family day and turned off their phones to enjoy family time. They didn't even realize the school had been trying to contact them. My mom quit her job a month after my sister was born to become a stay-at-home mom. Both my parents are now focused on having at least one more child. My dad even leaves work early on Fridays to spend more time with my mom and sister. For over a year, they've been trying for another baby, but haven't had any luck. Now they're turning to fertility treatments. Recently, they told me I'd need to babysit my sister for a few hours each week while they go to their fertility appointments. They even gave me a detailed list of instructions for caring for her, outlining everything I'd need to do. I told them no, that she's their child, not mine, and they're the ones responsible for her care. They argued that it's just a few hours a week and not a huge deal. My dad even said I should see it as paying them back for all they've done for me. That's when I told them I wouldn't help because they've never cared about me, so why should I want to help them now? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. Neglecting to pick you up when you are sick and calling your life a practice run is such a horrible thing to get from your parents, and I'm sorry they have neglected you. Tell them you'll do it if they can name your favorite food, favorite color, and best friend. When they can't, tell them you'll be giving their baby exactly as much attention as they have given to you over the years. Give them that wake-up call. They clearly need it. You're not in the wrong. You're not in the wrong. Start planning your escape now. Also, tell your teachers or guidance counselor about your home life. Tell your parents flat out you will abandon your younger sibling and then call the police if they try to force you to babysit. Kid, they are already neglecting you and making your life a living hell. What motivation could you possibly have to watch their child? Instead, focus on getting certified in a trade or getting into college and getting out of there when you turn 18.